welcome to the Life and Times of Captain Barney Miller podcast. I'm your host, Mike White. Joining me, of course, is the rookie, Mr. Chris Dashew.
How do you guys feel about nuclear energy? I don't know. It makes me uncomfortable.
And also transferring over from the 9th Precinct is Mr. Richard Hatem.
That's right, Bon. You guys are going to have old Captain Luger to push around for a little while longer. I don't know. That wasn't a very good Luger. I tried.
We are talking about 4 episodes of the original Barney Miller show from season 6, episodes 16, 17, 18, and 19. We're talking about guns. Guns. We're talking about uniform days, Dietrich's arrest part 1 and Dietrich's arrest part 2. We're missing some dates here, man. Guns aired January 31st, 1980.
Yeah.
Then we move over to February 7th, 1980. Yeah, okay, that's good. Oh, and then we jump a week to Dietrich's arrest for February 28th, 1980, and then Dietrich's arrest part 2 the next week, March 28th. But yeah, we're missing the 14th, and it feels like, I guess that's it. Just 1 week was missing there. But since Dietrich's arrest is a 2-parter, we figured we'd talk about that both together rather than breaking that up into our next episode. So guns. We're not talking about gun control at all, even though maybe we should be. Is that the brave statement to make, or I'm not sure? But Chris, what did you think about guns?
First off, Mike, how brave.
I know, right?
You're so
Imagine there's no...
It's easy if you try.
Oh, Gal Gadot. Do you know how Gal Gadot, she was never high in my book, but man, she's like rock bottom after that stunt.
Yeah. She, it's just imagine heaven without those people, because that's what I'd like to imagine.
I don't even remember who else did that, but just Gal Gadot's face in my face during the pandemic. I just wanted to, yeah.
Well, if we're going to talk about guns,
Let's talk about guns.
Let's talk about guns in this episode. I think it's interesting because, this was not on a very special episode of Barney Miller. This was on a very fucked up episode of Barney Miller. It's an interesting episode. I think it has one of the best visual gags in the entire run of the show so far, which is Wojo pointing a bazooka at Barney and going, "Hey, Barn, how about that race?" Which is
that should be in the opening credits.
It should. And that's what I was going to say. Like, what is this kung fu bullshit we saw for like the first 4 seasons? That is without a doubt one of the funniest visual gags. And the fact that I don't know if how Linda was expecting it, but it seems like they also got a genuine reaction out of it. Best I can tell. I think this is a fun episode. It is a strange episode theme-wise, but I like where it ends up going. It kind of subverted my expectations, especially with the title alone.
Richard, what was your thoughts on guns?
Yeah, I liked it too. You can't... I'm not surprised they didn't do a straightforward gun control episode. It's a cop show. It was...
Yeah, we've never seen them shoot anyone.
They've been, but like people have been shot. People have held a gun on other people in the show. Right. So it's like there's guns in the show. So for them to suddenly do a show about, gun laws or something, it's sort of like you could, but this touched on it in an interesting way. And it's not like the character, whose name I forget, but the guy who's almost like a vigilante.
Oh, like Stanley Brock. Yeah.
Yeah. That guy where he's constantly talking about, we got to keep ourselves safe. And he sort of butts heads with Barney. Anyway, what's happening here is a young David Paymer, who is awesome.
Oh yeah. I didn't even recognize him at first.
It's like, I knew him, but I'm like, wait a second, that can't be. And then I looked it up and it's like, damn it, it's David Paymer, who's clearly been working steadily for 45 years. All right. So he comes in and the gag is that he was holding up a store, but using a very old gun, like an antique dueling pistol. Now, part of what this episode is about is that Luger has sort of been, I don't know, I didn't see the previous episode. Has he been busted down to captain or something? Like, what happened to him?
Sure has. Busted down to captain.
Busted down to captain. Okay,
the show did a good enough job letting you know without having to spend half the episode on it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
No
and
need for a recap.
Vague recollection of it. And none of the guys want to work with him because he's just too annoying to be around. So they're they're sort of cycling him around. First you work with Wojo today, Dietrich tomorrow, Harris the day after. Oh, you're just pushing, like the old uncle who no one wants to be with. You just keep putting me with different people in different places. I understand, Barn, I understand. But anyway, he disarms the guy in a really, what sounds like kind of a badass way. Wojo later tells us it wasn't so much badass as it was quasi-suicidal. I'm worried about Luger,
very
which is interesting.
Reckless. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love when I love when Wojo's like, I'm worried about, and he like does the thing where he sticks two fingers in his mouth like he's going to blow his brains out.
And he makes a, sound.
Right.
Wojo's great, by the way. Everyone's performance in this handful of episodes is pretty spot on. I mean, these people have been doing these roles for 6 years now, 6 seasons. Mm-hmm. They're very comfortable. Anyway, so you've got, is Luger okay? That's sort of your B story. And I guess the A story is there's a guy who comes in who turns out to be the owner of that gun. And it is revealed that he owns tons of weapons. This is just his hobby, apparently.
Legal and illegal. Yes.
Exactly. And some of them is like
a bazooka, a submachine gun. Who knows how many grenades this guy had?
Right. A rocket launcher. Well, it turns out he was robbed, but didn't report any of it because some of these were illegal. And now they're all on the streets and people are suddenly using them it's all happening today. Everyone's using this weird array of guns to commit crimes. And this guy's just really into it. And what's cool about it is he does sort of express the Second Amendment person's personality, which is, I just fetish these things, and I fetish them because they have something to do with America. America's about guns. America's about weapons throughout its history, and I'm obsessed with it, and so I want them. And now, you don't get the feeling this is a guy who, goes out and shoots a lot of guns. He just likes having them. There's just some weird quasi-sexual thrill he gets out of owning a sort of shoulder resting rocket launcher thing, these giant phallic things that Wojo walks around with. He seems to like it too. When he aims it at Barney, he seems to be having a great time.
Well, we keep talking around this. The guy who owns all these guns is none other than Jack Dodson, who is one of my favorite character actors. I loved him as Howard on the Andy Griffith Show, but apparently he only did this role 3 times, but he made quite an impression. He was Ralph Malph's dad on Happy Days. Speaking of Happy Days from our Rankin and Bass chat recently.
Oh, wow. I forgot that. Yeah. Like, he's one of those guys that if you're our age, maybe a little younger, you're like, oh, yeah, that guy.
His turn as Howard in Andy Griffith was just terrific. I loved him.
Yeah. Yeah, he's great. And he's a classic Barney Miller type of person to wander through the 12th precinct.
And that he's soft-spoken. So when he's talking about these guns and things, you're just like, this guy's the gun nut. You would think like the Stanley Brock type character is like really into guns, but this guy, he's just so quiet and peaceful. Yeah. And I guess we're forgetting the other story, which is the I guess it's really the C story, which is the guy whose TV was stolen. I think this is Madison Arnold as Joseph Osborne. Yes. His TV was stolen, and he goes and breaks into the impound. And I thought that's where all the guns were coming from, was from this break-in at the impound. But no, it's just this guy breaking in and stealing back what he thinks is his own television, only to find out that it wasn't his own television. And so then Dietrich brings in his own television and says, oh, yeah, sorry. Now we have to keep this as evidence as to your break-in, so you can't get your TV back.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I thought that too. I thought somehow it was like, oh, the evidence locker has been raided and all these guns have disappeared. But that's not what it turned out to be. So it's interesting. I will tell you that I'm currently teaching at UCLA. And you guys know this. I do this about once a year. I'll do a class, and it's almost always in the fall. And it's just it's part of their writers program extension. So it's 10 Wednesday nights. And my class right now, the students are great. I mean, this is like the best class I've ever had. These people are smart and they're on it and they know stuff and they actually know some TV history. But Barney Miller came up in class last week and I was talking about it and I'm like, how many of you have seen Barney Miller? No hands go up. And I'm like, okay, well, it was this show. It was the 70s, shabby police department. You know, it's just a bunch of middle-aged guys talking. And then one guy's like, oh, wait, I've seen that. I know what you're talking about now. I saw it. I watched it. I watched the pilot. And then he just says, boring.
Oh.
And my soul was pierced. And then I'm like, I know what you're saying. When you're saying boring, you're saying what we like about the show, which is it's charming and it's not overblown and it has to do with characters. And you have to, you know, with every episode you watch, it makes the next episode funnier because you've lived a little longer with those characters and you've spent a bit more time with them and you know them a bit more. So by the time 6th season rolls around, they really are part of your family. Watching these episodes just reminded me of that. It's like I could show the class this episode, but then I'd have to explain, okay, look, Harris is a particular way. Right. Wojo has a relationship with Barney that is unique. You know, Levitt, how do I explain Levitt? And it occurred to me that even though it's not serialized in any way, really, this is a show that rewards repeated viewing in terms of getting to know these characters better. And then you can have a very little episode with Dietrich where he kind of is fucking with this guy about how he can't have his TV back. And it is hilarious because we know Steve Landesberg, we know Dietrich, we know that he knows he's just digging the knife in deeper for this guy, but he plays it off just, don't worry about it. Okay, sign here. All right. Yeah, don't worry about it. We got your TV. Yeah, you'll get it back one day. All right, goodbye. Get out. And it's delightful.
I appreciate it quite a bit. And the next episode, Uniform Days, it's got some great Dietrich stuff in there as well, which I wasn't necessarily expecting. Like this run of 4 episodes, very Dietrich centric. Of course, you know, the next 2, Dietrich's Arrest, are based around him, but I wasn't sure where we were going to go with Uniform Days. Just it's this annual thing where they all have to dress in their dress blues, I guess. And I love how Levitt reacts to seeing Barney in his captain's uniform, that he's like barking out like, yes, sir.
It triggers some sort of Full Metal Jacket kind of style.
You find Levitt in the bathroom late at night.
Going full Gomer Pyle.
You were talking about Wojo, and his acting is great in this too, especially when he Levitt kind of squares off against him, and Levitt does that like foot lift thing that he does to make himself look taller, and then Wojo makes this great goofy face and does the foot thing back to him, and I was just like, all right, this is nice. I like how Max Gale, he controls this role. He owns this role so well. And to your point, I think all of these guys are just spot on in this. And the real conflict of this episode is that Harris won't wear the uniform. And then I do like that he turns around at the end and is talking about how stylish he feels in it.
Well, it's so great because it's not like in the episode where he is mistaken for the criminal.
Right.
When he's responding to a crime, and it gets very serious and everyone is sort of like, no, we get it. This is more about, I'm Detective Harris and I'm kind of being a dick. I'm kind of full of myself. And and again, you know, it's not a super serialized show, but you know, when they are referring to Bob, and I know that means Blood on the Badge. And I know that Blood on the Badge is his book. And I know that storyline has been going on for a couple seasons. But again, I'm like, because in the back of my mind, I'm like, I got to show an episode to my class. I got to prove to them how great this show is. And I'm watching this and I'm like, well, this is pretty in the weeds, though. This is the culmination of a lot of Harris's character traits. And what personally, I got to tell you, in the episode Uniform Days, where the one day a year where they've got to prove readiness by wearing their uniforms in case something ever happened, some sort of civil disturbance, and all the cops had to put on a uniform. You got to prove you've got it. It's complete. You know, it fits, it works. You could be what looks to everyone else as a cop. So when Barney gets angry at him, I got to admit, I'm team Barney, because Barney is basically saying, look, I'm glad you wrote a book and you're making money or your movie deal, blah, blah, blah. But your job here has to be number one. It's the kind of job that demands that. You can't be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. This can't be this other thing that you do. If you're going to go be a writer, great, then you got to go do that. But being a cop isn't a thing you can do halfway.
The last time I saw two characters having this conversation was James Gandolfini and Michael Imperioli in the first episode of The Sopranos, where they have a very similar conversation. It's like, either you're here or don't fucking be here at all. Don't bother. Yeah. And it is hard to side with Harris as a character in this episode. I mean, I get it. I get it. Because part of me has that same like fuck the authority thing. But dude, you're also the authority. So like, it's like you know what you're doing. You're just trying to prove a point. And again, I think what this episode does more than anything else is make it very clear that Barney and Harris are never going to be friends, at least not in the way that they were before this happened. And that's reflected in the next 2 episodes, because I think after this episode, their relationship has become very strained, primarily because, again, neither one of them is going to back down from the things that they said and believe in, nor should they have to, frankly, which I think is not a bad thing. It's just a very interesting decision.
Well, it's funny because I see a lot of those themes playing off in the next 2 episodes, too, with the way that Dietrich is basically he's breaking the law or the rules by going to this protest. We'll get there, obviously, but it's funny because it's very much like bucking against the system. And how does the system react to you?
Right. And how does it stifle one's own ability to be one's self within the system? Again, the system doesn't owe you anything. System doesn't owe you any creative expression. It just doesn't. But when you get it, you feel like you need to fight for it, because the amount that you're given is so little that they know they could take it away more or less immediately.
Harris of, say, 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, just would be fighting this because it's crimping his style.
Right.
That he doesn't want to wear a uniform because it doesn't make him look good. And he is very proud of the way that he dresses. By this time, though, he has moved into this world that you were talking about, Richard, where it's like, I wrote this book, might be turned into a movie. I've got all these stocks and all this kind of stuff. And he now has gone from just the well-dressed person to the person that thinks that they're better than other folks. I mean, he doesn't necessarily ever throw that in anybody's face, but in this one, I think he gets as close to that as he ever will.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting that, okay, so this is a workplace comedy, and it doesn't, like, to a certain extent, the Mary Tyler Moore Show was a workplace comedy also, even though there were other things going on. And
you visited her actual apartment. You saw the world outside of the newsroom. But here we saw Barney's apartment once. We never will see it again.
Right. That got phased out. This didn't necessarily become a family comedy, but I think you're so correct that in these 4 episodes, if you just look at these 4, there's growing pains with Harris, with Dietrich. And Barney, of course, is the de facto father figure. I mean, even if you could even look, if we all had to write a college paper about these 4 episodes, you'd even go back to Luger as the uncle that no one is quite comfortable with. And people are getting a little tight in these episodes. People are not feeling a ton of elbow room. I'm getting cramped by Luger's presence. I'm getting cramped by what my outside opportunities are offering me compared to what my day job is requiring of me. I'm constrained by a rule that doesn't allow me to express my political feelings, but we're at a point where people are expressing their political feelings. It's funny, and this is 1980. Okay, so what's happening? Carter's still president, but Reagan's running, right?
Oh, yeah.
So this is the year.
It's morning in America, baby.
Yeah. And people, the Iran hostages and the energy crisis and all the stuff that's been played for laughs is now a little bit, and again, we're 6 seasons in, Nick is gone, Fish is gone, and it's kind of like, well, so this is our family now. These are the guys. This is the show.
What's funny is you mentioned Fish being gone. Fish is the only character that is mentioned as gone. We had this conversation on the last episode. It's never actually made clear where Nick is.
That's so funny. You're so correct, because they do an entire episode where they talk about the actor.
Right.
The actor has passed away. And it's like, look, we did this show with this actor and he was part of our acting family and we loved him. Then they come right back to the show and it's unclear. And there's a joke later on that is a pure setup for Nick. And again, I'm sorry for jumping ahead in episodes, but I just want to, I'll make the point that there is a cooler filled with possibly radioactive water.
Yes.
And someone makes the joke that, well, you can use it to make coffee. And I'm like, oh my God, if only Nick were here, we'd get the joke. Did you guys catch that?
Yeah.
I totally
what it was for. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was waiting. Yeah. It would have
couldn't make it any worse. Like,
yeah. You know. Or like Nick being like, oh, you had some water over here. I used that or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then the spit take. Right.
Yeah. Uses it just by accident anyways.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Nick, did you do something different to this coffee? This tastes really good.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't ask, Barn. Don't ask. But you're right. It would have been a perfect time to go. Yeah, that's if Nick were here, he'd go ahead and do it. You could. Everyone watching the show felt Nick's ghost in that in that setup. Anyway, yeah. So it's. Here's why I feel that Harris is out of line, because not only, I don't think being a cop is the kind of job you can sort of do on the side if you're carrying a weapon and you're actually out physically doing that job. But the personal digs he takes at Barney, that man's his boss.
Yeah.
You don't do that. Like in other shows, it would be like, I think I have to fire you. There's an episode of The Office where even Michael Scott has to face another character, Stanley, and sort of go, your insubordination. Like, I may be an idiot, but I'm still your boss. You can't talk to me that way, especially in front of other people, or I'm going to have to fire you. And the fact that that never even comes up is really interesting. It's just personal. It's like, you said something that pissed me off. Barney never says that's insubordination. You said things to me of an insulting nature that I could fire you for. And they never get there. So that's what makes it feel like this is a family dispute. And Chris is right. It's like, we may be a little uncomfortable for a few episodes.
The side characters in this are fantastic. I mean, I think we all love Stuart Penkin. His Proto Newman character here, the guy who doesn't deliver the mail, is terrific. What's the guy's name? Leonard Stone. I think that's not
Violet. You're turning
Violet Beauregard.
It is. It is. That's the moment he walked in. I
couldn't remember. Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was him or it's the guy who doesn't want to give Veruca a bean feast as her dad. Right. Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. So him showing up as the supervisor and just like, he's fantastic. I love him. And then it's odd because like the other story, there's that one going on. There's Dietrich doing hardcore detective work to track down this guy on the eve of the statute of limitations expiring. And just like, I just started looking for you last Tuesday, and this guy's been in hiding for like 20 years or something, just making potholders. And when he gets stuck in the cell with Hankins mailman and just won't stop talking about potholders, oh, it's so good. And then there's the other story, which is the guy who won the $1 million from the lottery, right? Or no, am I jumping ahead with that one?
You're jumping ahead. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's just Penkin in the cage with the potholder guy. I love that. I love it.
It's so great. And Barney makes the Jean Valjean, Les Miserables reference.
I love it. And so Dietrich's having none of it.
Dietrich is like, wait, what? Like Dietrich is like weirdly like, yeah, I'm going to get this guy.
This dog this week. Investigator. Yeah. Where did this come from?
Yeah. It's like a season ago, 2 seasons ago, he would have been like, I don't care. I'm just here. I'm just a guy observing police work. And now suddenly,
A guy, you say?
what?
Chris's theory that Dietrich is an alien. Yes.
Oh, okay.
I mean, he is. I mean, the show has made that more or less clear to us multiple times.
Well, you know what? And maybe this actually is in character, that he suddenly decides almost, on a lark, I'm actually going to do the job this week.
That's why I thought it was so funny. It's like, I'm just going to fucking do it. And then he does.
And he does.
And then he does.
He fucking does. And then, as you said, Mike, this guy has basically imprisoned himself.
Yes.
Convinced that there is a 24-hour, patrol searching for him for 7 years.
Yes.
And he's like, no.
Will not stop.
Yeah. And Dietrich says, no, I started on Tuesday afternoon.
The guy just keeps going, for years they were looking for me. For years. No, man.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, he might as well have been caught that day he committed the crime. He's been locked up, hasn't talked to anyone, hasn't done anything, and is doing a menial task. He might as well have said he was in his apartment breaking rocks and making license plates.
Exactly. Yeah. He has served the time for the crime.
He served it. They should just let him go.
Yeah. I like that conflict too. And just the idea of Barney being like, because Barney is never about arresting people. He doesn't want anybody in that room. He just, let's settle this and move our own ways. And here's Dietrich being the dogged detective. I'm like, who are you?
And it does seem a little like the crime. I forget even what it is. It doesn't sound like it was that big a deal.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, with a 7-year statute of limitations, I mean, probably couldn't have been that bad.
Okay. And here's a random observation of all of the episodes. But it's clearly, and it's something that I've seen a million times, but I haven't really thought about it. But it's those raking 3 shots, raking 4 shots that they do that are really great, where you're getting like 4 characters kind of stacked, in profile almost, like someone with their back to the front door. Then usually the perp is the second person sort of facing Barney, who's the third person kind of facing away from the camera. And then maybe like Wojo or Dietrich or whoever is the other guy sort of closest to camera profile, but everyone is participating in the scene. And I think maybe I thought about it because when I'm looking at this show, often it feels like I'm watching a play. It's like, well, we're in that room and we're in this room, and it's pretty subtle and it's just performance. And those shots that they do in literally every episode of this show are not easy to stage, because everyone's got to be like, okay, you got to be on your mark or you're out of the shot.
Oh yeah.
And then you've got to be acting, even though the camera's sort of over your ear, but you've still got to be in the scene, responding, listening, reacting. And it's just kind of, when you look at it that way, fans of the show, newcomers to the show, look at it and just sort of realize that almost never happens in a TV show, where you've got 4 people in kind of again, just stacked up and you're raking across them. That's some pretty impressive stuff. And it's just every episode of this show gets that. And it's great.
Well, there was a really impressive shot at the beginning of Dietrich's Arrest Part 1, where it's Dietrich and Barney talking, and Dietrich is talking about how he stayed there. He worked a double shift, and they're talking about the stubble on his face. And he gives this bad Shakespeare quote, and then he walks to his desk and we're following him, and then Levitt opens up the door, and then we follow Levitt, and this is all one take. We've got Dietrich and Barney in a 2-shot, then we follow Dietrich out. Dietrich just goes off screen. Levitt comes in, the camera picks him up, moves him over to Barney. They have a conversation, and then the camera keeps no cuts, moves over as Levitt is starting to leave, and then Dietrich enters right in, and it becomes another 2-shot of those two. And I'm like, then they start to cut after that. But that is one hell of a shot to just, this is just a sitcom from 1980, and we're just going to have these 3 2-shots that are all perfectly set up, all in one camera move.
I love that. I did not notice that. Now I want to go back and watch it. I think all 4 of these are Noam Pitlick episodes.
Oh yeah, this whole season. Yeah.
And again, I mean, I'll reiterate that Noam Pitlick, part of the show from day one. I mean, you're watching everyone at the top of their game. Everyone comes in knows the game, knows everyone's moves, knows what to do. The fact that people are, maybe they're acting out of character, but they're sort of bursting at the seams a little bit of their characters can be absorbed in the show. And I think this is Otto Bruno's least favorite season. I think he's talked about that.
Really? I thought it was his most favorite season.
I thought he had a complaint about 6 that it seemed like, because it was the season that Danny Arnold left, because he was gone for 6 and 7.
Right.
And he felt like there were uncharacteristic episodes. And I can see that. He says that, and you can make that argument, or you can make the argument of it's uncharacteristic, but it's stepping into areas that are interesting and legit and are carried off well. I would not say these are not well executed episodes at all.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying this season. It's been a bunch of bangers for me.
Yeah, same. Yeah. And Noam Pitlick directs this entire season and the next season in its entirety. So
wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about this show, is that it is a show that has been in capable hands even when the showrunner has to step away. And yeah, you mean, there are plenty of shows that would fall apart were this to happen to it.
Yeah.
But the lack of a guiding hand, looking at you, Dexter. And again, that's more of a narrative-based show, less a sitcom, but the idea still remains. The showrunner is a massive part of the show, as we have heard, and obviously Richard has been part of that process as well and could speak more directly to it. But it's pretty clear that the show is in capable hands. Yeah, because I'm with you, Mike. I have enjoyed this season immensely, frankly.
Yeah, it just feels more consistent, I would say. I didn't mind switching directors every episode, but maybe just having Pitlick's hand on the tiller the whole time just makes it feel a little bit more cohesive. And, Richard, you're talking about how the previous episode was Uniform Days was making all these references to other things. This two-parter, I love the moment, spoilers, when Dietrich gets arrested, thus the title of the episode, when he is being questioned by Ron, and he's like, well, there was that time where you moved in with me, and and there was that time I saved your life. And I'm like, oh yeah, all these things that happen between these two characters. And I have to say, I think this might be one of the strongest two-parters that I've seen. It doesn't feel like, well, we could have resolved this all in just one episode. I think it would have been wall-to-wall Dietrich if that was the case, which, no complaints for that. But I don't think we would have had any B or C stories at all had this been all crammed into one. And I think having that slight cliffhanger, at the end of the first one, where really there is no cliffhanger. It just feels like two really strong episodes that needed to be told in this way. I thought that this, because we've talked about that before, Chris, as far as like, did this really need to be a two-parter, like Wojo's Girl or whatever, like
that even need to be an episode?
Did need to exist. Yeah.
Well, Deitrich is, a great character. He's a little bit emotionally aloof.
Oh yeah. I didn't know he was married either.
A little?
Well, yeah. Okay. All right. I'm being, I'm understating it as compared to like Harris, who has episodes where he becomes really angry for reasons that we sympathize with. And I think we intellectually sympathize with Dietrich's concern about nuclear power and then nuclear weapons as an extension of that.
Well, yeah, because he knows what happens in the future.
In the future, because he's a fucking alien.
That's right.
Okay.
That's when zinc becomes our national currency. Yeah.
Literally in the last episode, Richard Libertini goes, the Arthur Dietrich. I mean, again, if the show is giving us all the information, I'm just going with what the show wants us to pick up on.
But
that's why I assume he wants the nuclear. That's why I assume he's against nuclear power, is because he's an alien.
Okay. But it's like, okay, look, Harris, if there's a racial issue that obviously is extremely personal to him, and we see it play out in a way that's respectful, and he owns that. With Wojo, Vietnam is his sort of thing.
And disliking prostitutes.
Right.
But they can be sincere in a particular way about a particular subject for a certain amount of time, and we buy it. Deitrich, there's never a big fight between him and any other character where Dietrich has to say, you don't understand why this is so important to me. He can do it. And we get that he is intellectually, it's like, look, I have to do what I have to do, and I'm not complaining, and you can arrest me, and I'm going to go lock myself in the cage, and I'll take my lumps. But then the seriousness of the subject has to be sort of shunted off to other characters. So that's in part 2, we bring in the guy who works at the nuclear power plant. And so he becomes the opposing voice, but not even necessarily to Dietrich. It's almost more to Wojo, who has read the book, Nuclear Power, License to Kill.
I love it.
And Wojo's like, I'm going to get my book. So we get all the talk, we get all the debate, which is great, but Dietrich is allowed to remain somewhat detached and above it all.
I love too that there's the running theme of Barney and his, well, he calls it his townhouse, or sorry, he calls it his apartment, but every single time Harris calls it his condominium, I think.
Yeah. Wherever it is he's living.
Right. But yeah, there's this whole thing because we have had the storyline already of his apartment being privatized, and he now needs to either buy it or get out.
Right.
And this whole thing, if he just needs $9,000 to wrap this up. And then, of course, there's the guy who won the $1 million is one of our B stories, and he's just throwing money everywhere, causing riots. And we've got like so many riots in this episode. We've got him causing riots. We have the riot at the nuclear thing. We've got the riot of the guy sprinkling radioactive water on people. And then we get the last one, which is the guy throwing money again, I think. So, and thank God we got Candy Azara in this episode. This is prime Candy Azara too.
Well, so Barney's apartment is going condo. If he wants to remain in it, he has to come up with $9,000, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I went on my phone. I checked it. That would be the equivalent of $35,000 in today's dollars.
Yeah, not petty cash, not anything I have in my savings account. That's for sure.
Yeah, and and again, we know these guys. They've been working the same job. And we know Barney's not making money anywhere else. Harris, of course, is. Okay, we got that. And he says, "Hey, can I help?" And Barney says, "You got $9,000, which would be the equivalent of me saying to you, you got 35 grand you want to give me?" Now, of course, Harris does have that money. And later in the episode says, "Here's a solution. Why don't I'll buy your apartment and sublet it to you. And I'll just increase your rent a little bit."
Right.
And it's that thing.
I'll increase your rent a little bit.
Well, there's got to be something in it for me. And Barney's like, you're going to own the place. I'm going to be just paying rent every month.
Right. You get the tax breaks. Yeah.
You get the appreciation.
It's like if we hadn't had the exact argument we had 2 episodes ago, I might at least pretend to consider this.
Right.
But I'm not going to have you be my landlord. That's a bridge too far. We're not going there.
My question is, why is Harris still working at the police station if he's got all this money?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of it is in the offing.
Oh.
It's like there's talk of a movie deal. There's talk of a sequel. And with, I will say, spoiler alert, this issue gets resolved.
Yeah.
This issue, a thing happens that makes it clear why Harris continues to work at the precinct, but we won't go any further.
Well, I assumed as much. Yeah. I assumed as much, given that he's on this show until the end.
Well, look, okay. One argument could be he wrote a book about being a cop. If he's going to write a sequel, it's going to be about being he can't quit being a cop.
Right.
That's his bread and butter. That's his, that's his Hemingway goes bullfighting. That's what he knows.
Yeah. Of course, in this episode too, we get the return of Scanlon. And then I didn't realize until it happened. Go ahead, Chris.
No, go for it. I want to hear you say it because I didn't realize it either.
I didn't realize that Scanlon and Luger did not know each other. So the introduction of these two guys, and then when they go into Barney's office, and she's like, "That's my seat."
And he doesn't even call him his name right outside of the one time, because I'm pretty sure at one point James Gregory calls him Lieutenant Scallion. I'm pretty sure he has to call him Scallion at one point. I'm pretty sure he did.
So him. Yeah, that is totally Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either. I was like, oh my God, they don't know each other? Like, this is kind of mind-blowing.
You would think that they had met on the show, but even without the show, you would think that they would have met, like not the actors, but the characters, just because they work in the same precinct.
Yeah.
Right, but I guess Scanlan is internal affairs, right?
Yes,
Which is
yeah.
the whole, I mean, that's why Luger's making all those faces. Internal affairs. Like, I don't know what he was doing, but he was making a lot of faces about it. So I don't assume, like, it's weird. I assumed they knew each other, but apparently they had never even heard of one, apparently.
Well, and I love too that at one point, I think it's Dietrich says like Big Brother may be listening, and Barney repeats that later on. And then Scanlan says, how you doing with that loan? And it's like, what? How do you know about this? And then, like, of course, there's a cleaning woman that's introduced in this episode, and she asks, how about that loan? How's that loan going? I'm just like, holy shit, everybody knows Barney's business. Like, it makes sense for her to know about it because she cleans out the trash and read that missing chapter of Blood on the Badge, which sounds like it might be a little steamy. But yeah, I was like, how does he know about that unless he is listening in on their conversations? We did have that whole bug episode way back in like season 2 or something.
It's totally crazy that that they suddenly bring in this character because they're working late tonight.
Oh,
right?
thank
We've
you for mentioning this, Richard. Good God.
Yes. And it's sort of like, wait, what? And it's like on the one hand, again, she's great, and there's this.
Yes,
you almost feel like, oh, is this going to be? Are we going to see her again?
No.
But she wanders through. She's cleaning up. She knows everyone's business because she's going through their trash. And Harris does this really great little bit of blocking they gave him that doesn't even get remarked upon. But when she says something about, oh, I read the first draft, and then while there's dialogue, you see him open his desk drawer, take out the manuscript, look at it, look at her, and then put it back and close the drawer again.
Oh, wow. I didn't even notice that. Holy cow.
It's so good. I mean, again, it's like all these deep cuts that reward second viewings and repeated knowledge of all the storylines. But anyway, she's great. She's really funny. The episode ends on her.
Right.
So it's,
she is a force of nature, the way she comes in singing and being so loud about everything. And I was like, she runs the risk of being a really annoying character. But yeah, I ended up kind of liking her. I'm hoping we don't get too much more of her, if anything at all, because you never know with characters like this.
I don't think, I mean, maybe, but I don't think we do. It does not, if she doesn't turn into Levitt for sure,
Yeah.
I just love the retcon of a character being like, I've been here this whole time. Like, what? It just felt like a weird retcon. Like it felt like when they're like, oh, hey, Mike, remember Mike, everybody. It's like the same thing. Is the cleaning lady gonna come back? No, but she's there every night. So there you go.
Right.
Yeah. In 1980, you could get away with that. But it's funny because they've had other episodes where it's clear the whole episode is about night shift and it's midnight and and you never see a cleaning lady. You never, it's like, really, they never work past 5. Ever. Yeah. So they've never met for 4 years for the majority of the show.
Even Dietrich worked double the previous episode.
Yeah, it should have been, they should have known each other. Oh, hi, Blanche, whatever. Right. They should have done a thing. I don't know. But
Mabel, I think, isn't that what? Is that it? Hazel. Hazel is what Luger calls her because of the famous maid character. Yeah.
Right.
So this actress has been in 3 Barney Millers. She was in 1 in season 2, 2 in season 6. So we just saw her, and this is her last appearance. In fact, this is the last role that she ever played, as far as I know, because she passed away in 1980.
Oh, Jesus.
So had she been a recurring character, they wouldn't have got too much out of her.
All right. Well, in that case, watch this episode and enjoy this woman's possibly last network TV performance.
Yeah.
And she fucking nails it. This is these 2 episodes, Dietrich's arrest and being about the subject of nuclear energy primarily, is extremely timely. China Syndrome, which Chris and Susan and I talked about on CultureCast,
Oh, good.
earlier
I'm so
this
glad.
year. Like,
So glad that Chris is aware of all this stuff.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
that's
I was
awesome.
actually like, I was really at one point, I was like, I didn't want to look until the episode was over. I was like, did this come out before or after? And then the second episode, they answer that question. I was like, okay, got it.
And that horrible movie, he says.
Yeah, that horrible movie.
I looked it up. It was the previous year. So it was the previous spring. And then they were like, okay, over the summer. And as they're writing these episodes, they're like, okay, let's do our China Syndrome.
It's very timely. Yeah.
Because what happened was, and what we discovered doing Chris's episode of CultureCast talking about the movie, was that China Syndrome came out and I had it backwards. I thought that the 3 Mile Island, scare was right before it came out. And so when it came out, everyone flooded the theaters. As it turns out, the movie came out, when people sort of knew about nuclear energy and stuff, and there were something on 60 Minutes probably, but it was like a month into the movie being in theaters.
Holy shit.
3 Mile, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Dude. It's
I always
fucking
thought it was
nuts.
ripped
It's
from
like
the headlines. Holy shit.
No, the
Wow.
order is crazy. When you
Whoa,
learn it,
crazy.
it's kind of nuts.
Like right when the movie would have been
the best
dying off.
advertising that movie ever could have gotten.
Literally, the
Wow.
movie studio must have been going like, "You've got to be kidding me!"
Oh
This is
my
the great-
God.
I mean, it's terrible, but
Right. And
cha-ching.
Paramount or whoever is just like,
Yeah, and then it plays all summer. I mean, it becomes the most famous
Oh,
movie of
yeah.
the year. It's in Oscar nominations, and it's a good movie, but it's not like. And Jack Lemmon is amazing, but you watch it again and you're like, okay, I mean, it's not The Godfather, it's whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, that started him down a really bad path, though, because he got fired from 3 Mile Island. He started selling real estate and just couldn't get it working.
Rio Rancho properties. Rio Rancho.
Yeah.
right. Then
The
he became
leads were weak.
a very grumpy old man.
The leads were weak. You're weak. Hit the bricks. That's yeah. And that's there. But that's boy, wouldn't that be something? The extended China Syndrome universe.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, Marvel's been hinting that they were going to branch into the China Syndrome universe, but it just, Feige fucked it up. So he couldn't afford the rights to it.
I do like how we bristle at the idea of Barney Miller trying to increase its universe by adding a cleaning lady, and it seems very strange when they do it.
No girls allowed.
What's really weird is like they show the board a couple more times in these two episodes than they normally do, and I was looking for names to see if Wentworth was on there or if Chana was on there. Those names are gone now. They don't show up as much as they used to, which when they used to go to the board, you would see one of those two often.
Right.
Well, as the oldest person on this podcast, I will say that there is like something weirdly nostalgic about that subject matter, because when you're watching this show and you're alive in 1980 and 1979, your chief concerns in your life are nuclear bombs and nuclear power plant meltdowns. I mean, these are very.
I'm right there with you. You might be a little older than me, but the day after scared the shit out of me, man.
Yeah. So all of this stuff is like, oh no, this is serious stuff, and the debate about nuclear energy. Now, I'm not coming out pro or con. All I'm going to say is that having been alive and aware in 1980, and then being alive and aware 43 years later. And there haven't been like 50 nuclear meltdowns around the world. There have been, there was Chernobyl, there was Fukushima because of an earthquake,
tsunami.
Yeah. I mean, it was. Yes, you would hope that any nuclear power plant could withstand any environmental threat.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm looking back and going, oh, that's kind of weird to think about the fact that there haven't really been a ton of nuclear power plant emergencies in the past 43 years.
But at the same time, but at the same time, we've got, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's the Fermi plant is the nuclear power plant here in Michigan. It's about, maybe 20, 30 miles away from me. And we've got that. I mean, to your point, Richard, we haven't had that many meltdowns, to your point, Chris, that we know of. But why are we still so reliant on coal? Why is this time where they make them and then they just stop making them? Because I can't think of any time that another nuclear power plant has opened anywhere in the state. We just have the one, and we're still burning coal like crazy, folks.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously in the energy world, there's huge lobbyists and huge political interests going back and forth. So I don't know the number of nuclear energy power plants we had in 1980 compared to the one, if we have more, a lot more, no more, I have no idea. All I know is whatever that particular fear is up until this day, right now when we're recording, has not manifested as, and we were right. It's a crazy fucked out industry that was poorly regulated. And we've had many, many Chernobyls. And not only that, but I will say, and again, God forbid, but it is miraculous to me that there have been no nuclear bombs.
Mm-hmm.
It's like in wartime, in terrorist time.
I swear to God, Richard is putting this energy out into the world, and now it's gonna happen.
Oh, I know.
Crazy, we haven't had a nuke go on.
Right.
This will be the episode that historians listen to in the future.
The Robert B. Reedy's name shows up, and we're all fucked.
Yeah.
To answer your question, a power plant opened in the United States this year.
You're right.
In Tennessee. Yeah. And the last time one opened was in 2016. Also in Tennessee.
54 nuclear power plants operating in the United States, according to the EIA.gov.
And the average age is 42 years old.
Well, and
so that answers that question as well, in a way.
Okay, but this guy, the character, the nuclear engineer who comes in and features in this episode as sort of the opposing voice to the protesters of whom or of which Dietrich is a part.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, it's totally safe, and I here's some water from the nuclear power plant. This is the cooling water, and it's totally safe. I thought they were going to do a thing where someone was going to have to drink some of it. They never do that.
Same.
They make the coffee joke, but whatever. Anyway, but it's the atomic water, and he's saying, look, it is totally safe. And it's better than gas. It's better than coal, which causes pollution.
Mm-hmm.
And wind and solar isn't ready yet. And it's funny because these are still conversations we're having.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm so surprised that we just haven't seen that influx because from what I understand, windmills cause brain cancer. So people should just be dying left and right. Plus it's killing all the eagles. And now it's even forcing whales to beach themselves. This has got to stop, people. And then too, with solar power, as soon as the sun goes down, everything stops. That's how it works, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, you're right, Mike. You're speaking for a lot of very sane people.
The exact time I want lights is when there are no more because solar power just doesn't work at nighttime.
Yeah, when the sun goes down and you need a light, you can't use it because your solar power isn't coming back for another 8-10 hours. Right. So you're screwed.
So do you want that or do you want brain cancer? Which is it?
I think we missed our calling here, the three of us. We could be very convincing for the wrong group of people, I feel like. Don't you see? The space lasers are powered by solar power.
We should just do a left-wing radio show trolling idiot MAGAs.
Yeah.
And we'll call it Making America Great on every episode.
No. Chris.
Magop.
Ranking on Trump.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it's too on the nose, though. Even for us, that's too on the... Isn't the name of the show going to be Ranking on Trump, Chris? Well, I guess it has to be now, Richard.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, okay. Well, you said it now. You put that out.
Speaking of Trump-like characters, I do like that Scanlon is a proper dickhead and will probably never not be in this show.
Yeah.
But he also is a nice counterpoint to how far Luger has come as a character, because there is a moment in time where these two could have interacted and it would have been like, hey, buddy, hey, pal. And it wouldn't have been what it is now, which is Luger says, nah, fuck you, dude. Hard fuck you, dude. Because he loves the people in the precinct. That didn't used to be the case.
Yeah.
Right. But that's also traditional. Everybody hates IA, internal affairs.
Right.
Everyone hates IA and AI. Let's just say it.
It's true. Well, that's because they're also corrupt in the 12th precinct. That's why.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. It is funny that, he walks in and just sees stacks of cash.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even
Perfect.
want to know.
And the guy who's like, I'll pay you $50 to this.
go to the
to give me a
bathroom.
cup of coffee. Yeah.
Make it
whatever.
75. Done.
Right.
I don't
I
even
love
want
it.
to know.
Yeah, these were 4 very, very solid episodes. And like I said, I think this might be my most favorite 2-parter because both parts are very solid and they're 2 solid episodes. I mean, I don't even know if they needed to be a part 2 just because we are crossing over into things actually really starting to follow from one to the other. Like I said, maybe that's Gnome. I'm not sure, but I really like this idea of being able to reference the previous episode and episodes even in previous seasons.
Well, what they did was, I don't know how it cut into the timing, but the end of part 1 was a preview of part 2,
Mm-hmm.
which took up a minute or so of airtime. And then the beginning of part 2 was a recap of part 1, not a traditional sort of cold open, which led into the opening sequence. So that eats up another minute or 2 of story time. So again, these were not 2 full separate episodes. They were each trimmed by a minute or 2 of flash forward, flash back. They felt very married together. They, again, like you said, very cohesive, interesting story, totally on character. It didn't feel hyped up necessarily. So yeah, we hit a good streak. And oh, by the way, and I wanted to say, I looked at the book and I'm so sorry. Otto Bruno does not rank this season low. I think it's this. I think you're right. I think it is the 7th season that he began to sort of have a problem with it.
Uh-oh.
But this might be the peak.
Right. We might have peaked here, folks. Yeah.
At least it wasn't in high school.
I don't want to misrepresent the great Otto Bruno. I've enjoyed the episodes where he's on. I hope you guys keep having him on. I'm a fan. I love this book. I thank God every day the book exists for people like me who are Barney Miller addicts and stans. So Mr. Bruno, I correct myself and I will not speak on your behalf again.
I hope that Otto's listening to this episode with hearing just how much Richard is pleading to have him back on.
And have my book signed. I don't know how it would.
Oh, wow.
Oh, Jesus
I want
Christ.
it so badly.
Yeah. I didn't even get my book signed, and I got it right from the author.
Yeah, mine's not even a hardback. Mine's a softback. What's this horse
Same
shit?
Here. Yeah.
I bought, because I went on Amazon and bought the fucking hardback.
Wow. That's
I'm out of my mind.
Fan. Yeah.
I bought 2 of them. I gave one to Larry.
Holy cow.
Wow. Larry has one. Larry has one.
Larry's got one.
Wow.
Fuck you, Larry.
Fucking Larry. Am I right?
I know.
Totally. That guy.
Yeah, look at all the praise we're heaping on Otto Bruno's book. It's almost like you should go check it out at bearmanor.com.
Oh, you
Fair
should.
Manor Media.
Guys, get the book.
Fairmanormedia.com.
It is.
Fair Manor is completely different website.
That's
If
where
you're
I like to hang out on the weekends and have a lemon party.
Ooh, CNFMJOI, baby.
go to bookshop.org and order it. You'll be fine.
You ordered it off Amazon, though, Richard. Aren't you part of the problem now?
No, I ordered it off Bookshop. I don't get anything from Amazon except for condoms. Wow. The look on
what are
Chris
you
and Mike's
buying?
face. Like, huh?
Because I don't know what you're buying that you can't get at the store, but whatever it is must be pretty pricey.
I was just trying to come up with something controversial. That's all.
What did you say?
I have to get my condoms from Norway. There's these special ones. They're extra large.
They make sure to accommodate all the way to the elbow.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it goes. They're the fist condoms.
When we come back next month, we're not going to be talking about fist condoms. We will be talking about the last 3 episodes of Barney Miller's season 6. Possibly we're at the summit of the mountain. We're not sure, but we'll be talking about the architect, the inventor, and Fog. So until we come back then, Chris, what are you working on, sir?
Just trying to make sure that the prototype for my fist condom makes it through the initial test run. Now you can find all the things that I work on at weirdingwaymedia.com. And if you're expecting them to be as exciting as fist condoms, they're just audio podcasts that you can entertain and enjoy yourself with while you fist. So weirdingwaymedia.com is where you can find all the things that I work on. What about you, Richard Hatem?
I am spending my days and nights helping my lovely wife, Susan Lambert, do her podcast, 80s TV Ladies. I write the show descriptions, so I'm actually involved.
Wow. Was that allowed under the WGA contract?
Oh, yes, that was okay. Weirdly, that was okay. Weirding way, that was okay.
Weirdling way.
80s TV Ladies, taking a look at female-driven television from the 80s, both in front of the camera and behind. They're having a blast over there, talking to fan groups. There's a lot of Scarecrow and Mrs. King action going right now. They're just having a party over there. People are coming out of the woodwork going, "Hey, what's this show?" and volunteering to be on. I don't know. It's going crazy. So if you want to get involved in that party, go check out 80s TV Ladies.
Fantastic.
What about you, Mike?
Well, everything I do is over at weirdingwaymedia.com, which makes it very convenient. And I work on a couple other things, including a show called The Projection Booth. You may have heard of it. If not, definitely check it out, please. So you get to hear more of me just droning on over and over again. Until we come back next month. And unfortunately, Richard will not be with us. This is just a guest appearance. So until we come back, definitely rate and review the show over on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Probably not Stitcher anymore. Sorry, folks. Shop's closed.